I wanted to actually ask you, if one were to get into philosophy, like where do they start? Because for me, like I tried to read Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil. Mate,
That's
mate,
intense.
I
That's
couldn't
intense.
understand what
That's
he was saying.
intense.
You get like little bits of it, but
Yeah.
it's completely beyond comprehension for me.
Yeah.
So for me, I feel like I've always tried, and I always get this pushback because it's so technical, very abstract. Honestly, I actually tried to read a couple of your papers, and I couldn't really make out what you were saying.
Oh no! I'm so sorry.
No, it's not your fault. That's more to do with me. I'm just like, so I've always wondered, how do I get more into philosophy? And I think many struggle too, because it's like, it's not kept away from us, but I feel like because of some of the technical terms and whatnot, it's hard to sort of become a philosopher.
I think there are a couple of ways that this can be done. So what I recommend is, even though from a kind of subversive intellectual perspective, the Greeks aren't the be-all and end-all. So there is a kind of myth that philosophy begins with Greece. So no, Western philosophy begins with the Greeks, but not philosophy simpliciter, because every culture has engaged in philosophical praxis. There's nothing unique, particularly about Greek philosophy. It's just a particular domain of European philosophy. Plato is a perfect person to begin with. So I would always say the first text to read from Plato is the Republic. Beautifully written, so interesting about the connection between psychic harmony and political harmony as well. Because Plato is not just a brilliant thinker, he's also a brilliant writer. And I think the key thing that people need to get into philosophy is finding a philosopher who's gifted as a writer as well as a thinker. And there are very few philosophers who have that ability. So I think Plato's Republic is a great point to start with. If you want to, Nietzsche is a brilliant writer, but I wouldn't do Beyond Good and Evil. What I would recommend instead is On the Genealogy of Morals.
Okay.
That's much more kind of slow paced. It's one of Nietzsche's more elementary works. Not to say that it's superficial, still super profound work, but it sets the stage for things like Beyond Good and Evil. Another philosopher that I would recommend definitely reading is Frantz Fanon. Anything by Frantz Fanon, either Black Skin, White Masks or The Wretched of the Earth. The reason why this is probably the key philosophical work to look at is because it shows how you can blend philosophy with psychotherapy, psychiatry, and post-colonial studies and decolonial political theory to touch the lives of people. And Fanon is an example of a formidable philosopher who avoids needless technical jargon mumbo-jumbo and just kind of moves you. Another philosopher to read, and I would just recommend any of her work, Gillian Rose. Gillian Rose is probably one of the most underrated and underread women philosophers, certainly in the Anglo-European canon. Because I think for one thing that she is known for, which is she was trained in the kind of mainstream Anglo-American analytic tradition as a student at Oxford. And in an interview very shortly before she died, very tragically of cancer in her mid-40s, she talked about how when she was being trained at Oxford, she said something like this, and I hope your listeners will forgive me if I get the reference, the quote not quite right. She said, "We were trained to be clever and supercilious, but our training didn't feed the soul." So when I used that expression earlier, feeding the soul, that's kind of a homage to Gillian Rose. She wanted to produce work that feeds the soul, that doesn't simply show you to be clever. So it's not just cognitive gymnastics, it's that you have to touch the lives of people. And she does that in a lot of her work. Iris Marion Young, brilliant political theorist. She's actually one of the reasons why our daughter is named Iris, just because Iris Marion Young seriously is, again, formidable intellect. Justice in the Politics of Difference very much replaces equality with equity as a key part of feminist political economy as well. Democracy and Inclusion in the World is a great work. And I would say the other final work to look at is a kind of more of the intersection with philosophy and sociology and feminist thought would be Patricia Hill Collins's Black Feminist Thought. Because again, you have an example of a thinker who uses philosophy to make the public sphere a better place. And there's no excessive terminology in Hill Collins's work at all. It's very much rooted in that kind of use your theory, use your words to speak to people as equals. Don't try and impress them with flashy terminology. Don't restrict the language only to those who are able to participate in university seminars. Make it as accessible as possible and as stimulating as possible. And I think Hill Collins is one of the best at doing that in her work at the intersection of philosophy and sociology.
Okay.